Hi R.C.I.A. class, and welcome back for another video. I hope everybody had a good week as always, and I hope everybody is still healthy and well. Today's chapter is on chapter 20 from our book titled Social Justice. In terms of announcements today, no new announcements compared to last week, with the only one being if I haven't checked in with you by email lately, send me an email and let me know how you're doing and if there's anything that you need in any way that the church can help you out during this time. Okay, so for today's chapter, it's on social justice, and I wanted to start off with the point from the Catechism of the Catholic Church section. Letter A, it says, what is the basis for respecting human dignity? And it makes the point that we believe that because we are a creature from God, there are inherent rights that go along with that. These rights are prior to society's rules, and we believe should be recognized by society. A lot of our Catholic moral teachings come from this starting point as well on things like abortion, euthanasia, and other right-to-life issues. So that's a starting point. That's important. Then in letter B, under the From the Catechism of the Catholic Church section, it has the question, are all people equal? And the answer is yes. We believe that since we all come from God in our souls, and thus we have God in us, so we all have the same nature and origin. Therefore, we are all called to an equal dignity. And not showing dignity to others is like not showing dignity to God. Then into the heart of the chapter, I want to start with number 10 because it gives us sort of a definition of social justice and social teaching as a basis for the rest of the chapter. So in number 10, it says, what is the purpose of Catholic social teaching? And there it says that it helps us to develop principles to evaluate how well social structures minister to the good of the individual and the common good. And I mentioned this first in out of order, like I said, to establish sort of a definition for all the other things that follow with social justice in the chapter. All right, so then moving back to number 1, it says, what story in the Old Testament teaches us the most about social justice? And it talks about, it's the story of the enslavement of the Jewish people. They were being oppressed in Egypt, in slave labor camps, so God sent Moses to be their savior and free them from that slavery. The Jews saw their political deliverance from this unjust social situation as an act of divine salvation from God, and they showed their thanks by praising God for that. Number 2 says, did the Old Testament people of God uphold the ideals of justice in their society? And they did have laws about love and justice and mercy in society, but because they were human and not perfect, they sometimes didn't live up to those in their behavior. So God kept sending prophets to remind them of these values and how to treat other people. In number 3, it said, what did the prophet Amos teach the Hebrew people about social justice? So Amos was one of these first prophets that God sent that I mentioned in number 2, and he was shocked by what he saw in society with the rich in their treatment of the poor, and that they weren't helping them with sort of their basic needs. His main teaching was to correct this and to show that God was ethical and that he didn't like worshipers using religion to mask their immoral treatment of others, which was sort of what they were doing with the poor and the oppressed in society. In number 4, it asks, how does Jesus teach the need for justice? And Jesus talked about salvation from sin and injustice in his parables on the Good Samaritan and the rich man and Lazarus. Both of those parables showed that it's part of our teachings to show compassion and respect for the poor and the hungry in society. By his behavior to the oppressed and the poor and going into these uncomfortable places where most people wouldn't, Jesus set the great example of service for others. Number 5 says, are there other New Testament teachings about justice? And it just makes the point that all human beings are equal, brothers and sisters under God, with the common Father that we have in God. And number 6, it asks, what is the departure point for Catholic social teaching? In all of our social justice teachings, we begin first by affirming the sacredness and the dignity of the human person, starting with conception as being someone created by God in his image and destined to be with him forever in heaven. So all social teachings come from and start with that as its first basis. The spiritual, psychological, emotional, and bodily integrity is a fundamental value of that concept. So when you look at all of our Catholic social teachings, it involves both soul and body together. Number 7 says, what is the immediate consequence of the dignity of the human person? And it says first that we have to be good stewards of all creation, which includes both humans and nature. Our job is to put all aspects of creation to service of humans, including the social, technical, economic aspects of creation. But perhaps overall the most important is that the spiritual and the psychological, emotional, and bodily integrity of each person is held as a fundamental value of that principle. Again, it all starts with the intrinsic value of the person coming first. Number 8 asks, how do rights and duties fit into this vision of human dignity? And it says that rights and duties are complementary in that when one person has a right, other people have a duty to respect that right. The encyclical that's listed there, which that means a writing, is from Pope John the 23rd. These encyclicals are further teachings that the Church has on things like modern social issues, and they aren't specifically mentioned in the Bible. But as Catholics, we do believe in things that aren't specifically mentioned in the Bible, and as time goes on, the Church has to put out these teachings that deal with sort of modern moral issues that didn't exist in biblical times. Number 9 asks, what is the importance of seeing a human being as a social being? And it says that we are made to be social in our nature, and that it is important for our development as people on many levels, including spiritual, in the way that we can learn about God from our social interaction with others. So laws, forms of government, financial and economic systems are social structures that affect us all, and the moral standards that govern these things are important to us as Catholics. Number 12 asks, does the Catholic Church see itself as having a social mission? And it makes the point that Christian moral behavior involves the corporal works of mercy. These corporal works of mercy are listed on page 100 of our book, Invitation. And corporal works of mercy are tangible things that we can do to help others, like feed the hungry, clothe the naked, visit the sick, etc. At the bottom of number 12, it lists more church documents with church teachings on social ministry. Number 14 asks, how does the church's social mission affect our call to this ministry? And it says that each of us should support the cause of justice with a preference for the poor, the oppressed, and the victimized. And that it is part of living out our faith in both word and deed. In other words, putting these beliefs we have about social justice for these groups of people into action. And then finally, I really liked what it said at the end of the chapter under the Living This Message section. It says that we are called to solve the symptoms as well as the causes of injustice. The symptoms are poverty, homelessness, hunger, etc. And the causes of injustice come from more formal structures in society, such as government, business, and attitudes of the people of society. So, that is our chapter 20 on social justice. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to email them to me, and I will make sure to get them answered for you there. I hope everybody has a good week, and we'll see you again next week for chapter 21. Take care.